Hello, I am Stephanie Joy, the attorney at All Things Social Security and Joy Disability Law. Your video is about to start. I just wanted to remind you that if you click the join button below, you can learn more about the memberships offered at a very affordable price that can give you a little more direct attorney answers to your questions. Have a great day and enjoy the video. Hey, so quick little lunch break here. So I thought I'd give a little share on a question I was kind of answering during lunch. And it was a question about, I thought we had a video on this, but maybe we didn't. I think maybe I just addressed someone one-on-one with it who had a question. What kind of bank account do you open if you are the representative payee for a person on Social Security disability or retirement or SSI, yep, all of the above. A lot of times this question will be asked by a parent of an adult disabled child. And I think that might be the case here. So anyway, here we go. And I'm just going to take this right from the Social Security website because banks all use different names for different kinds of accounts. They are not really consistent. And I have found that for some kind of custodial and or trust or this, that, and the other thing kind of account, not related to what we're talking about here, but just generally trying to open up a account, even for like when I opened up accounts for my kids, it was like a little bit of a rigmarole. They don't seem to be very well trained in it. Now, here's what the SSA says. And so I think this is the way you should roll with it. I don't think it's going to be a high standard to meet, so don't worry. It'll be somewhat easy to do, but it's going to, your bank might call things differently. So the way they explain it is this. A checking account is better in some ways because you will have canceled checks or statements that show how you spent the funds. Perfect. If you decide to use a checking account, consider that some beneficiaries cannot keep balances high enough to avoid service charges. Good point. Not really to the point we're getting at, but I think it's nice that they remind you of that. If you must pay bills through the mail, a checking account might still be cost effective because cashier's checks and money orders have charges associated with them as well. Great point. Now, a big point, of course, that would detract from that is that almost everything can be paid online now, including having your bank send a check. You go online, I do this not that infrequently, and have your bank send a check to the recipient that you indicate. You should set up an account that minimizes fees and enables you to keep clear records. Obviously, we encourage using interest-bearing accounts. Obviously, that is not going to be so important for an SSI person because you're never really going to have monies in there because then they're going to breach their resource limit. You must title the bank account so it is clear that the money in the account belongs to the beneficiary. The representative payee has to establish an account that in the name of it makes it clear that it's a fiduciary account. So when you speak to the bank, you want to make it clear that it's a fiduciary account. You're the fiduciary for this other person. I'm going to attach a couple links because they go into great detail about collective account. It's called a collective account on their end. And in one section, they say, we want you to contact us before you make it. And they want you to send them a copy of the bank statement showing that it was properly titled. They make clear that you have to know whether it's a direct deposit account or not, that all monies in there, of course, always are owned by the beneficiary, not you. You're just the secretary, really. You're the labor. And one of these links someplace, because there's a few different SSA links on this, did specify, and if I find it, I'll stick it up there, that the beneficiary's Social Security number is on that account because he or she owns it. You are just the fiduciary. So make sure that's clear when you talk to your bank. They're going to have whatever name they're going to have for it. They do also give in one of these links sample names. They said it could be your name as fiduciary for SSA beneficiary. And then the Social Security would be the beneficiary's Social Security. Now, I could be sure that I've seen where people do, let's say it was me, Stephanie Joy, as fiduciary for SSA beneficiary John Doe. And that's even more clear. And then, of course, the Social Security number on the account would be John Doe. John Doe would be responsible, and you as a direct payee for any taxes on that if he earned a ton of interest, which is unlikely. But they go into a lot of details here. Sometimes people are a beneficiary for more than one. Fiduciaries for more than one beneficiary, and you can have one account for that. But I can imagine that would be a little more difficult because you're juggling two different monies and keeping them clear might be different. If it was me, let's say I had two kids that each have a beneficiary account, I would probably keep them separate. I don't know. That's just something I feel like I would do. But I don't think it's necessary because they have something that could be this one account called a collective account. I'll stick up all these links, guys. But whatever your bank calls it, they might call it a custodial account, a fiduciary account. It is a fiduciary account no matter what it is, because a custodial account is fiduciary. I have a couple kids ones and I'm the fiduciary. But you have to, I would run it by the local office when you set it up and make sure they, don't have any issues with it. I don't think they're going to. And in fact, I know most people don't run it by the field and they roll with it and there's no issues. But this is what they're saying here. So if you want to err on the side of caution, they're basically saying until you get it squared away, don't use it. Well, what if it's 6 months because the SSA is so darn slow? I can't answer that, just saying. And of course, as you know, you always have to document where the money goes to after it gets in there. So you want to kind of keep a good register. They have online registers now with each bank usually, so you can plug it in there. When money is electronically being sent someplace, you can kind of document that it was for, the beneficiary wanted some DoorDash or whatever. Anyway, all that. All right. I hope that helps a little bit, guys. Fiduciary account, however your bank sets it up. I'm going to put these links in here. There are a lot. I don't know if it's really necessary to go through all that, but if you are the type of person that is, very cautious, wants to be safe, sorry, and follow every single rule, which I probably would be if I was in your boat, I'll put this up there. I'll talk to you later. Bye. Hey, so if the subject matter of the video you just listened to is of interest and you want more on it, stay tuned. Here's another one about the same topic, but a little bit different. Bye now. Hey, all. This is a little information about representative payees under the Social Security Administration and what their duties are. So you might find yourself being in the position where you are expected or being asked to be a representative payee for someone else who has prevailed on a Social Security disability or an SSI claim, or someone who is already receiving it, but now they suddenly need a representative payee. Generally, this is because the SSA has determined that the beneficiary can't handle his own funds. Oftentimes, it's due to a mental limitation. Other times, it could be physical if they really can't physically pay their bills. So it could be, obviously for a number of reasons. But in any event, let's just go over what the duties are of the representative payee. You're basically going to be in charge of the person's money. It's going to come to an account that you are on, and you are going to be in charge of making sure the bills get paid that the beneficiary has. And oftentimes the beneficiary is a family member. Sometimes it could be a very close friend, that kind of thing. The alternative the SSA has for beneficiaries who do not have someone they can trust to be representative payee are organizational representative payees, and they are approved by SSA, and that's a whole different thing, and they actually collect a small fee for doing that job. But for the rest of us who are doing it, for a loved one, there's no fee charging for that. That's just something you do. Not allowed to charge a fee. But in any way, there are required duties, and I'm just going to run through them here. They're actually online at the SSA website, so I'm going to link the article to you, or the write-up, I should say. And let's go through them. So the first thing you have to do is determine your beneficiary's needs and use his or her payments to meet those needs. So that would be housing, making sure the person's fed, basic bills are paid, all the survival things. If you're that any money that's left over after meeting those current needs on a month-by-month basis, you're expected to save that money and put it in an interest-bearing account or savings bonds for the beneficiary's future needs. Because of course, a rainy day could come where he's going to have an additional expense, right? Could be medical, could be something else, You're supposed to report any changes or events that would affect the beneficiary's eligibility for payments. So this could include if beneficiary passes away. If you ever watch the Friday Fraud Law Review segment, we go through kind of ad hoc some of the many convictions or charges or sentencings of people who have, taken control of others' monies and didn't quite use them the way they're supposed to, and didn't necessarily report when the person passed and kept the money coming in and using it for themselves. Keep in mind, a lot of the time, the representative payee is the parent of a child. Things are a little different when it's the parent of a child because the checks and balances are not quite the same, since the parent is tasked with the legal responsibility of providing for the child anyway. Okay, so other changes or events that you would be reporting if the beneficiary goes to work. Let's say he starts working full-time, part-time, anything. All that is, when we're beneficiaries, we're supposed to report that. You as a representative payee, I would think that if you learn of your beneficiary going to work, because that would potentially change, if he's on SSI, it's going to almost certainly change his benefit amount. And SSD, it'll also implicate trial work periods and whether he's SGA or not SGA, whether he has to have benefits withheld, or whether it's going to cease his benefits altogether. You want to keep records of all the payments you've received and how you spent and saved them. So, generally, I think there's like an annual reporting, but you're going to want to make sure that you can account for all those monies, because if bills aren't being paid and the money's gone, then there's going to be a curiosity as to whether or not you are capable of doing your job, whether you took the money, what have you. And by the way, I think the incredible vast majority, if not nearly everyone who's a representative payee, is above board and does all the right things. But you have the occasional bad actor, right? Let's see. So when the SSA asks, this is upon request, when the SSA asks you for all those records, you're going to have it ready. So always I would keep your receipts, keep those. If you're paying with a debit card through a particular account, that would be a great receipt right there, because it's going to show where it's spent. But I would probably also just keep the receipts as well. Maybe you have a scanner, you could scan them in or keep them in a big box or something. You also need to report to the SSA if there's any changes that would affect your performance doing this really important job of continuing as the payee. That could be if you're having difficulties accomplishing, like maybe you are having difficulties paying your own bills on time. What's the chance of you being able to reliably pay the beneficiary's bills on time? Things of that nature, I think. You have to complete reports that accounts for your use of the payments as required. So again, the SSA might ask you for certain records. They also may ask you for the report. Now, historically, I always understood that it was kind of an annual report you're supposed to do anyway. So you're going to want to make sure what your SSA, how they're doing it now. Like, do they want you to every year just put it on your calendar and fill out the report, or wait for them to ask for it? If you, and this is the part where you could be a little bit at risk. If something happens and unbeknownst to you, the beneficiary has an overpayment. Maybe there was, particularly with SSI, when those payments can be very changeable, based on him getting a gift, inheriting something, and suddenly you have an overpayment. You can be on the hook for making sure the SSA gets paid back. So if you didn't realize there was an overpayment and you spent the money on the beneficiary for his needs, nothing untoward, nothing ill-intended on your part, and there's an overpayment, the SSA will generally go after you as well, because you're supposed to be all-knowing. So it's something you really have to stay on top of. Make sure that you know the rules of when that beneficiary, and again, this is going to be mostly SSI, when that beneficiary may be getting an overpayment. When a payment that he's been getting is not due him in the amount that it's being paid, because down the line, it's going to be learned that he inherited money, or he had a gambling win, or maybe went to work part-time and forgot to report the very low earnings that would slightly reduce his SSI. That stuff can really add up to a dandy overpayment, and that's not fun. So you definitely want to stay on top of it. When you stop being the representative payee for the beneficiary, if you ever do stop, any of the payments that have not yet been spent have to be returned to the SSA, so that then they can then forward it to either the beneficiary, if he's going to now be his own payee, like he can do it himself now, or to whoever will be the next payee if it's getting transferred to somebody else. Okay. The SSA reminds us too that a power of attorney does not make you the representative payee, even if you have power of attorney over something with the beneficiary. You still have to apply to serve as the payee. And for the record, also, the beneficiary, if he or she does not think he needs a representative payee, he can ask to not have one. So sometimes, I just had one the other day where the SSA wanted the new beneficiary to come into the office. I think they wanted to give him an eyeball, because he doesn't want a representative payee, and they wanted to see if he appeared that he might not need one. I thought that was interesting that clerks at the SSA office can make that decision, but I mean, it does happen. It has to happen expeditiously. So I suppose that's the next best thing. If they hadn't felt that way, or they were still on the fence about it, he probably would have gone to his doctor and seen if his doctor, despite any mental or physical limitations he has, could he manage his own benefits. A person who has been managing their own bills anyway probably will be held to be able to continue to do that. So it might be under other circumstances where there's evidence that they can't do that or can't do it properly. Again, there's no fee you can charge if you are the representative payee. You're doing it out of the goodness of your heart. If you pay for something for the beneficiary, you can reimburse yourself for it. You're going to want to keep very good receipt on that, because obviously that's going to be under scrutiny, right? But sometimes, like, you may have paid for something because, you didn't have his debit card, or whatever the case may be. It was just in the moment. You can certainly get reimbursed, but you're going to want to keep it documented. Show that you paid something out of your own monies, not out of the account that you've set up for his monies. And that's why you're then getting reimbursed. They also say here that you should obtain SSA approval before you use benefits to pay for other out-of-pocket expenses incurred on behalf of a beneficiary for other than current or reasonably foreseeable needs. So I would think, the unforeseeable things that that come up, you might want to. I mean, they say SSA approval. Sometimes, you don't have time for that, but I would be very overt about it after and make sure everything is transparent. Okay, let's see. Okay, you're going to want to generally set up a bank account. SSA thinks that the checking account is better in some ways because you will have canceled checks or statements that show how you spent the funds. And they remind you that if you're using a bank account, for the beneficiary's funds. If he's on in some programs, as they say, you have to make sure that his balances, you're not, like if it's SSI, you can't keep super high balances, right? Because then he's going to be exceeding the resource limit. But at the same token, sometimes some checking accounts require a certain balance in order to not have, to avoid service charges. So you're going to want to play that one carefully. You want to minimize the fees. So you want to have a bank account with the lowest, with low fees, because you're supposed to be there, remember, protecting his monies from silly fees. There might be some fees, but they do say that you should be seeking to minimize them. They encourage representative payees. So encourage doesn't sound like a mandate, but they encourage you to use an interest-bearing account. If it's Social Security disability where the person can save, if he doesn't spend all his money on his basic needs, and he's not a heavy spender otherwise, doesn't have a lot of maybe hobbies that cost money that you'll be expending his monies for him on, he could be accumulating quite a savings. Again, this wouldn't be the case for SSI, but SSD. And that's why you probably want to have an interest-bearing account so that his own money can earn him some interest, right? They also make clear that you must title the bank account so it is clear the money in the account belongs to the beneficiary. You can talk to the banks about that. They should be very familiar with these kind of, I don't even know what the word would be. I don't know if it's considered a custodial account. Not sure, but talk to the banks. Every bank does things a little differently, and make sure it's not just if you're Mary Jones and you're representative payee for Johnny Jones, you don't want the account to be purely Mary Jones, no other indication that it's Johnny Jones monies in there. And you do not want to put your own monies in that account. You do not want to commingle, in my opinion, your monies with the beneficiary's monies. Okay, because that's gonna make a little web of a mess. So they go on to say that the proper use of the benefits includes current needs. This would be food, clothing, shelter, utilities, dental and medical care, and personal comfort items. So it's not like they're supposed to be living in a prison cell with, 3 hots and a cot. There can be, allowance, a little spending maybe every week. And you also want to maybe hold some back if they have enough to save for reasonably foreseeable needs that might crop up in the future, little, emergency things. But outside of that, you're supposed to conserve or invest the benefits for the beneficiary. So all that extra that he may have that's above and beyond what he needs to live, you're going to want to save it and invest it in a secure manner, so it can earn money for him. They emphasize too that where the beneficiary has unmet current maintenance needs that aren't able to be met, saving benefits does not serve a purpose and would not be in his best interest. So if his monies are so low that he's barely scraping by in terms of survival, paying the rent, paying the utilities or whatever he's responsible for, you don't be surprised if you're not going to be saving any and investing any. That's only where that shoe fits, where that would come in. A lot of people, I think, do not end up having a lot of savings just because Social Security disability is not all that much for most of us. So the bottom line is the use of the benefits is always in the best interest of the beneficiary and always using your best judgment. So combine those two things and you'll probably do just fine. They give some examples of what you cannot do. Being a payee representative payee does not give you the authority to sign legal documents other than Social Security documents related to that from the SSA. You don't have legal authority over earned income, pensions, or any income from sources other than the Social Security or the SSI. You can't use the beneficiary's money for your own personal expenses or to spend funds in a way that would leave that beneficiary without necessary items or services. So not only can you not use it for yourself, which should go without saying, right? But again, that Friday Fraud Law Review segment, we're always seeing people doing the exact opposite, and that's why they go to prison. But you also have to be careful how you spend the funds. So you can't be spending funds irresponsibly, even if it's for the beneficiary, if it's going to leave him without his necessary items that he needs, right? You can't put a beneficiary's Social Security or SSI monies, I think we mentioned this before, in your own account or in someone else's account. It's going to have to be in that dedicated account that we're talking about. And of course, when you're no longer the payee, let's say it's a child and he turns 18 and no longer needs a payee because he's an adult, you can't keep whatever's funds were saved. If there were some saved, you got to hand that over. And you also cannot charge the beneficiary, I mentioned this before, for services for being his representative payee. Again, unless authorized by the SSA to do so, and that would be those institutional organizations that jump through certain hoops and follow certain rules and get that authority from the SSA. There are some interesting questions they go on to talk about. What if the beneficiary wants you to spend money on things that do not meet your approval? What is your responsibility? The SSA says that, of course, and this is what we mentioned before, your main duty is to make sure that the current needs of the beneficiary are met. That is the main and foremost duty. Everything else is secondary. It's once you have met those needs that he or she has the right to some discretionary spending money. So that was where they give that a little allowance, even if you don't approve of all of his or her choices. So you're not like the parent, assuming this is an adult beneficiary. You're not his guardian per se. So you got to let him do some things that you might not buy with it. It just, if he wants to, right? Now they do go on to say with drug or alcohol abuse, you may want to give him or her only small amounts of spending money. Makes sense, right? Or you can buy food rather than giving him the cash for the food. That's probably a good way of doing it sometimes. Instead of giving him $100 to go out and go shopping where he spends 50 and then the other 50 goes to God knows what, to do an Instacart order or go out and buy yourself, right? If you think he or she is spending money on illegal or dangerous items and activities, they obviously encourage you to seek help from a social service agency that can help him or her. You can also ask for guidance from the local Social Security office or by calling that toll-free number that you hear from me all the time about other things. That's the 1-800 number, 772-1213. Let's see. Oh, yeah. So they talk about, I'm going to skip this one because it's about an institutionalized beneficiary, and I don't think that's going to be the most of you out there. So I don't want this to go on too much longer. Oh, this one would happen quite a bit, I think. How do I handle large sums of money, such as if they get a big back benefit check from SSA covering several months or even years? They reiterate the main thing to keep in mind is you must spend the money wisely and in the best interest of the beneficiary. Your priority is always to make sure you meet the beneficiary's current needs. That's the food, the shelter, the medical care, and the comfort items. After you provide those needs, you could spend the money on things that would improve his or her daily living conditions or provide better medical care. You may also use leftover money to satisfy his or her debts. However, if you are a creditor to the beneficiary, we must approve your use of money to pay any debt that he or she owes you. That's a good point. And of course, you have to save any remaining funds for him or her, always, right? They are reminding everybody, if this is an SSI situation, as you know, the SSI beneficiary cannot have more than $2,000 if single or $3,000 if married in countable resources in any given month. So you need to spend, so if you did get a big back benefit, you got 9 months to spend it. And as a rep payee, I would keep all my receipts so that his resources are never going to be above 2,000 once that 9 months is up. If you don't spend the money within 9 months after the month of receipt, an overpayment may occur, and that's because they're not going to be due the benefits while that's over. And benefits may stop if countable resources exceed the $2,000 threshold. Okay. These get all very detailed down here, so I'm not going to go through them. I just wanted to give you those basics of, as a representative payee, what you need to do and what you need to document to protect yourself. And of course, always to protect the beneficiary. Yeah. Or else you could find, if you screw it up, I'd hate to see you, if you're, had the best of intentions, be stuck with an overpayment that you might have to pay back. Because if you're not careful and you spend all of the beneficiaries' monies only to find out that he wasn't supposed to have received them, that will be the overpayment, and that could be a little sticky. There are things such as waivers and payment plans, so don't hesitate to use those if they apply to your situation to get out from under such a dilemma if that happens. They do happen quite a bit, actually, but not always. Had nothing generally to do with the representative payee situation, just in general. A lot of SSI folks in particular get nailed with an overpayment just because of the way, particularly like the part-time working folks, because they forget that their benefit from this month is going to be reduced of what they should be getting due to any part-time work. And, months later, the SSA catches up with them and now does the recalculation. We shouldn't have sent you the $914 in September of 2023, which we should have sent you only $600. Now you have a $200 and something, $300 overpayment. And that could be multiple months of that happens. I mean, the overpayments can really grow pretty fast. So you want to be super careful. Okay, representative payees, you are invaluable, very necessary a lot of the time. And to those who need a representative payee or are being assigned one and don't think that they need one, there are steps you can take to show the SSA that you don't need one, that you are capable of handling your monies. So look into that if you need to. It happens a lot, the SSA is trying to be cautious, but they do recognize that, you can have some severe mental limitations, but they don't necessarily interfere with your ability to pay your bills, right? There's a ton of them. All right, guys, have a great day. Bye now.